not a doctor, but I play one on TV. I know the problem, you've got just one policy. You do the opposite of what the Donald does. Don't know what you believe just because you got that TDS. You've tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. Open the borders, let Mamdani pick your pocket. Let the boys beat the girls, they got that extra rocket. A theology degree from Starbucks. You declare that America sucks. You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. If you're red, alright, let's get this party started. If you're left, you're blue and probably retarded. Like Rosie, De Niro, Jimmy Kimmel, Kathy Griffin. No kings, no kidding, we don't live in Great Britain. If J6 was the worst thing you've ever seen, Soros, burning Sadies, a mostly peaceful thing. Bring back the cartels, commute their crimes, sack the fact checkers like the New York Times. He's a Nazi, a fascist, a racist dictator who lets you say what you wanna say.
Luke, I am your daddy.
You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. No matter what he says, you must be really dumb, 'cause you keep blaming Trump for your problems.
Side effects of Trump derangement syndrome may include violent behavior, delusions, nightmares, insomnia, irrational hatred, hopelessness, anxiety, depression, blue hair, tantrums, inability to form coherent speech, difficulty maintaining gainful employment, and verbal diarrhea.
There's no cure in sight.
Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome to the program. Nice to see you again, and thank you so very much for being here. Today's program is going to be a very interesting one because we're going to talk about history. Here's a quick tease. Do you know the fascinating history of wearing a cross around your neck? Put it in chat. How many of you have currently, otherwise, or whatever, a cross that you wear around your neck? Put it in chat. We'll talk about it when I come back. But what is the reason you actually wear a cross around your neck? Where did it come from? That's what we're going to be talking about. Today's program is brought to you by the fine folks at Gold Co. Here's what I'm asking you to do. It's very easy. I'm just asking you to go to jovanlovesgold.com. That's it. Request your free gold and silver kit today, because now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver. You might qualify to get free silver, right? But you need to understand this loophole, which will protect you, because digital money's coming, folks. It's the way it is. It's going to happen. You've got to understand why having physical assets in your ownership is going to become very paramount, okay? So the question I'm asking you is, do you know the fascinating history of where wearing a cross around your neck comes from? What is the origin story? How did it work out? How did it come into being? That's what we're going to discuss. It's a very fascinating history lesson. Share this right now. Be right back.
Did you know there really is a 1,000-plus-year-old abundance and food security secret, which has been kept from modern mankind? Now that secret is published and out in the open, all thanks to the amazing best-selling book, Ancient Secret for Growing Giant Fruit in Small Spaces. Is there really a secret method for growing giant fruit? The answer is yes. But what is even more exciting is this secret method was specifically designed for small spaces. From big yards and land plots to apartment patios and decks, you can grow giant fruit in exceptionally small places, like a garage wall, patio wall, or even your backyard fence. This secret method is truly ancient knowledge, which was exclusively practiced by kings, queens, and the ruling class within their grand palaces, castles, and estates. But thanks to this simple, easy-to-understand and follow book, those ancient secrets are being revealed to everyone who wants to grow their own food and achieve real food security. Think about that. At one time, the secrets and techniques in this book were only reserved for the estates, castles, and lands of rulers and royalty. And now you can do the same thing for your own home. Remember, your home is your castle, and the only ruler you are accountable to is yourself. So why not fashion your home gardens into those which are fit for a king? There is even more than you could ever imagine inside the chapters of this groundbreaking book. Secrets like how to trick fruit trees, which normally take 3 to 5 years to bear fruit, in producing fruit in a matter of months. Or how to use this ancient method to train your fruit trees to not only produce more abundance of nutritious and luscious fruit, but get those fruits to be 25%, 50%, even up to 100% larger than regular grocery store produce. This book is an exciting journey back in time, weaving in and out of various periods in history, filled with fascinating people and the stunningly beautiful lost art of Jovan Hutton Pulitzer's bestseller, How to Grow Giant Fruit in Small Spaces. Get your colorful hardbound or soft copy of this amazing bestseller from Amazon. Learn this lost art, achieve true food security, and then pass this along to your children and grandchildren. Don't wait, do it now.
Okay, folks, we're going to go on a historic journey, and we're going to talk about where did it occur in time that people wore crosses around their neck. Put it in chat just for kind of an understanding. I love religious, I wouldn't call it an artifact because it's not an artifact, jewelry, whatever the case may be. I like to collect it. I like having it, right? In the past, at different times, I've worn a cross, never worn it on the outside, always under my shirt, kind of just a reminder to me, but never on the outside. But here's my question. Why or what was your reason? Because everybody has a little bit of different flavor of reason. Put it in chat. What was your reason for wearing a cross under or outside your clothing? I like rosaries. I think rosaries are cool. I even have Tibetan beads. I collect these things, which is olive wood and then ivory, right? I used to sit as a matter of discipline, my chain of beads is about 2 feet long, right? It's old olive wood, and it's handmade, old ivory. And I would basically, I call prayers as petitions. In other words, stuff I was struggling with. For each bead, I repeated the prayer, just kind of as a matter of discipline, right? So why do you, in your history, why do you wear a cross? What exactly does it mean to you? And do you know where all of this comes from? Do you know how it started out? Do you know the origin story? Do you know about these things? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to give you some very interesting history, right? From a historian's standpoint, we're going to go to Eusebius and some interesting things he wrote, but it all stems around Constantine the Great, Constantine's mother, right? This is Helena. She was the mother of the Emperor Constantine the Great. And she literally, this is true, stands for one of the most pivotal turning points in Christian history. So we're actually going to go back to the time period of about 326 to 328 AD. So this is, call it pretty close to 330 years after the crucifixion of Jesus. And so she came into her prominence when she was in her late 70s and late 80s. Okay. But she sparked a very interesting revolution. Pop quiz. If you were looking at business today, businesses, we'll get off religion for a moment and we'll get to business for a moment. What industry sector does, call it, $25 to $30 billion a year in sales? A category business that does about $25-30 billion in sales. Here's kind of a list to give you a scale so you understand. This is the esports industry, competitive gaming that has grown to about a $25 billion business. The luxury watch market, we're talking high-end watch, right? Specific brands, high-end collectibles, that does about $20 billion a year. Board games or tabletop gaming, your checkers, your chess and all that, that's about a $25 billion industry. Specialty coffees, right? Not generic coffees, but specialty coffees. The more frou-frou coffees, the more exotic coffees. Like me, I'm a coffee her. I love coffee, great coffee. That does about $22 billion a year. I know some of you will love this. The cannabis, edibles, and concentrates market, that does about $22 billion a year. People that own private jet charters, called fractional ownership of private jets, that's about $25 billion a year. High-end fitness equipment, like your Precor or your whatever case may be, right? Your high-end ones, that's about a $20 billion market. Baby food, organic baby food, child nutrition, that's about a $25 billion market. Craft beer, same thing, about a $30 billion market. Luxury pet food products, not your conventional stuff, but when you buy special things for your pets. The wedding industry in the United States as well is about a $25 billion industry that's putting on weddings, getting the rings for it, etc. The solar panel industry is about a $25 billion industry. The video game peripheral business, that's about a $25 billion industry. Do you know what else is a $25 billion industry? The selling of crosses for people to wear. Now, you never think about things that have a religious connotation or a faith connotation in it, but from a business standpoint, crosses that you wear is, in fact, a business. It's about a $25 billion a year business. And it's an open market to anyone because the idea of the cross is not owned. But how did it become a $25 billion a year business? You never think of it that way. How did it all come about? Let me give you a little bit of history of the woman who helped usher all this in and kind of how it began.
The city of Helenopolis in ancient Bithynia was the scene of remarkable encounters and unities, where history highlights a remarkably important figure, Helena. Before she was venerated as a saint, Helena was born in a pagan context during the 3rd century, when Christianity was still beginning to expand in the Roman Empire. Her modest origin, working as an innkeeper and in charge of the stables, did not indicate the role she would play. Her qualities soon caught the attention of Constantius Chlorus, a young officer who, despite social differences, approached her. Helena became Constance's wife, and together they had a son, Constantine, whose relevance to Christian history would be decisive. Constantine was born in Naso, present-day Serbia, and was raised under the attentive care of his mother. With Constantius's political advance into the Tetrarchy, Helena was separated from her husband and son due to the demands of emperors Diocletian and Maximian, who ordered Constance to marry Maximian's stepdaughter Theodora. Separated from the family, Helena faced a period of isolation but remained resilient. Her new status did not change her way of being. On the contrary, it expanded her initiatives to support the most needy. Helena devoted herself to charitable works, helping the poor, freeing prisoners, and helping those in need, without losing the simplicity that characterized her. Her conversion to Christianity had a great impact on Constantine, who, under her influence, promulgated the Edict of Milan in 313, guaranteeing religious freedom to Christians and ending a long period of persecution. Helena began to live her faith discreetly, participating in religious ceremonies among the people. Among the highlights of her life is the pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 326, when she was about 78 years old, motivated by family issues involving Constantine. In Jerusalem, Helena ordered the construction of the basilicas of the Nativity at Bethlehem and the Ascension on the Mount of Olives. She also supervised excavations at Golgotha, the site traditionally associated with the discovery of the cross of Christ. This episode became a symbol of her devotion. During the voyage, Helen sent 3 crosses to Constantine, one of which was incorporated into the iron crown preserved in Monza Cathedral, reinforcing the idea that power should be in the service of higher principles. To this day, fragments of the cross are kept in the Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, Rome. Helena died in 329 at the age of 80. Her legacy is recognized in both the East and the West, where she is celebrated on different dates. His image, often associated with the cross, remains a reference of faith and devotion. In Rome, his memory is preserved through the porphyry sarcophagus on display in the Vatican Museum and by the monumental statues under the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. We pray, O Saint Helena, who found the true cross of Christ, strengthen my faith and hope. I intercede to Jesus that I may be protected from every evil. Help me to carry my crosses with love and trust in God. If this video about the life of...
Okay, there's a lot of videos out there. I encourage you to follow that to understand the history. So she went from, I guess you would call it a normal peasant pagan girl, married into the right family, became venerated in many ways, even to the latter part of her life, that she was canonized, became a saint. And in the Catholic Church, she is a intercedent between you, the church, God, Jesus, etc., that you pray to her. Now, that's her backstory. That's her backstory. I'm going to give you a little bit of the that came from it. She's known more for the son she begat. Okay, so you notice this is the Roman Empire. And this is what is known as the rebirth of the Roman Empire, which I'm going to tell you that story in a minute, because the Roman Empire was tearing itself apart. You probably notice quite a bit of this symbology that's involved, like the key row. You see that. In fact, Christians today will tell you that's satanic because they don't know what it is, or it's actually when the Roman military adopted this, it was for a very specific reason. Where we're going to go on a journey as this unfolds, we're going to go to the sepulchre. This is a church. You would know it in modern day terms. It's right on the edge of the West Bank in Israel. Kind of gives you an idea. You see it right in the center. This is a venerated site that inside the church are all kinds of interesting relics, right? And it all begins with this one woman. And what she did when she was, we'll say in her late 70s, pushing 80, she undertook what became known as the first pilgrimage to the Holy Land. She's the one that says, I got to go. Remember, she was Serbian, right? Her son was raised in a different land because of her affiliation with the Romans, what became the Holy Roman Empire. And so she wanted to undertake a journey, a pilgrimage late in her life to the Holy Land. Now, her journey is remembered as she was the one that recovered the true cross. The true cross. Basically implying the cross that Jesus was crucified upon. And so in that journey, she went to what you know historically as Golgotha to see if it could be found. Anyway, you might notice, wait a minute, that wasn't a cross. We'll get to that in a minute. But that was an accurate depiction of Golgotha, what it looks like, etc., where it is. When you get into the church, I'm going to talk about in a moment. If you were to look under the little glass encasement they have there at the sepulchre, that is supposedly the rock that the cross is set in. Okay? Etc. Now, people confuse it with different things. Some people say this was where Jesus was born or this or that, but it basically represents the crucifixion. So what happened is she's very devout. She's searching, which as we all should do, she's searching to the truth about her faith and why does she have it. So she went back in time to see where Jesus, the Christ, remember his name is not Jesus Christ. That's not a first and last name. It's a name and a Greek title, right? And so this journey is considered as many things, a historical fact and a pious legend or a blend of both. But what it did is it sent shockwaves through the Roman world, because through her son, it fundamentally reshaped how Christianity presented itself to the empire and to the future generations. You got to remember, Constantine, if you think of him in the emperor or the popish effect, he had left what was traditionally Roman lands, and he went to what is now in Turkey and said, I got to get away from these guys and we're going to kind of clean this stuff up. That's kind of what he was known for. And at the time, pagans were battling with people of the word. There was not a word Christian. It did not exist The concept did not exist. It was just people that believed the word of God, the written words of God that came down, and the letters that explained what God was, what God expected to us, etc. Well, these people are murdering each other. And so Constantine, because he became the ruler of the Roman Empire after years and years and years and years of civil war, his center of the universe is being destroyed. It's being ripped apart because people were saying, that's not God. And this person say, well, that's not God. Kind of like, well, you're not baptized, you're going to hell. Well, you cut your hair, you're going to hell. There was the same battles that mankind has fought for a long time. And so his whole empire is imploding on itself. Economy's going to crap, right? Now, at this time, 313 AD, what was happening for hundreds of years prior, the Romans themselves, if you were found to be a person of the word, don't think New Testament, if you were found to be a person of the word, and you believed that you had a direct relationship and connection with God. Well, the Roman Empire didn't approve of that because, of course, you got to go through government. You got to go through them. There is no thing that you can go directly to God. So what happened is for several hundred years, Christians were tortured, arrested, taxed, etc. And this is, you know this later on in history with Islam. When Islam came about, another 400 years later, it said, you either worship our way or you're dead, but we won't kill you if you agree to pay us a tax for the rest of your life, and you'll just pay a tax to think the way you do. Yes, history does repeat itself. So what happened during the Roman Empire, and this is why they call it the revival of the Roman Empire, is this business, this way of life was being ripped apart. And so her son, Constantine, issued what was called the Edict of Milan, and it granted legal tolerance to Christianity. This is after hundreds of years of persecuted. The word Christianity is kind of only a misnomer here because that word wasn't used. It's used to describe it today, but it was people of the word. So he basically said, you don't have to worry about being arrested. You don't have to worry about torture. You don't have to worry about death. Constantine began to realize there's power in this movement, right? And he began to think to himself, without going into it, that he could probably use this to his advantage in a pragmatic way politically. So now his mother was very humble, right? How Constantine came about, his mom, just so you understand, she was a concubine for Constantius Chlorus, right? Now, he himself had basically said, there's something to this word, the people of the word. And so what happened is Constantine granted a wish and sent her on an official pilgrimage, and it carried both political weight and religious weight, very important at the time, bringing a nation together that was torn apart. And it's kind of funny when you hear in later stuff, they basically the ultimate insult the church could issue a woman is she was a harlot, she was a whore, she was this, when in fact his own mother was a concubine. So she traveled there, and all she wanted to do, but she traveled under imperial authority. She says, I want to see the places, I want to honor these places, I want to touch these places. And I got to tell you, there's something magical about standing on the exact ground where this occurred 2,000 plus years ago, right? It's just magical. You get a chance to do it. Has nothing to do with your religion, but just understanding what happened. So she wanted to go to it. So what she did, and this was a perilous journey, by the way, her to get to Jerusalem. Wasn't a small undertaking. Roads were dangerous. It was incredibly expensive. Now, the city she arrived in, Aelia Capitolina, was basically where the Romans themselves squashed the Jewish revolts of the first and second centuries. So the Romans had already conquered this place, okay? And she's traveling under Roman protection to these cities. And she's traveling to the site of Golgotha, which I showed you. And that's what they called the place of skulls, where Jesus was crucified. And the legend goes that he was buried under rubble. It had been buried under rubble. And at the time, there was a temple built there by Emperor Hadrian. And what Emperor Hadrian, another Roman, wanted to erase the memory of the people of the word. Okay? So people of the word, absolutely forbidden, right? The only authority you have is not to a higher authority. The only authority you have is to your Roman rulers. Faith was not allowed. Well, all of this was buried under rubble. So she basically, that's why she's kind of the patron saint of archaeology. She basically went there and she began an excavation. Okay. Now, various Christian writers over time have written about this over time. God, dingy dongy. My system froze again. I hate it when that happens. Hang on, you're going to see me blip for a momentary second. Okay, here we go. And there, I'm going to just make sure I got sound and stuff right. And so we're going to go back in time and we're going to look at some of these religious scholars at the time. The first one I'm going to take you to, Eusebius is how you say that, Eusebius. So Eusebius writes about this. He's a fellow, a scholar, who in fact personally knew Constantine, okay? And he talks about they went back, and in this site of rubble, they just happened to find 3 crosses. They're actually called towels. She uncovered 3 crosses at the site. Now, this is 321 years after the event. They're traveling to the base. They clear all the rubble from battles and everything else. And they supposedly find 3 crosses. Okay? Now, you're probably asking, well, how did they know they were the real crosses? How did they know these were the authentic artifacts? Again, 320 years after the fact, she's really searching, which we're all supposed to do. Remember, the concept is ask, no, ask, knock. Because we are required by God to dig into our faith, regardless of what it is, because we have free will. So you might ask yourself, how did they know these were the exact crosses? Because this is where it all begins. How did they know that these were the exact crosses where this central character of the word that had been prophesied about was, in fact, crucified? Well, what they did is they were able to apply basically a scientific test of the day, okay? They did 2 things. They had 3 crosses. And basically, they brought forth a woman who was sick, possibly leprosy, and they made her hand touch the cross. And when she came to the 3rd cross, or whatever order it was, it never says to time, she was magically healed. And they said, wow, this must be the actual cross that Jesus was crucified on. Well, of course, there were skeptics. So what they did is, in this cross that Jesus was crucified on, which this person touched, they forced this person who was sick, this woman who was sick, to touch it. She's magically healed. But of course, there were doubters. And so the next thing they did is they went and got somebody who just died in town. And they took that person who had just died in town, they laid that person on the cross, and that person was instantly resurrected and came back to life. By the way, have any of you ever heard this story before? How they verified the cross or how they find it, right? So a woman was healed and a guy who was dead came back to life. Keep with me with the story. It's very interesting. Most people have never heard this story because it set in motion the entire history of why people have and wear crosses. This is what set everything in motion for people to have and wear crosses. Now, you're probably thinking there's a little disconnect. She died 2 years later. You know, she gets him back to her son and whatever. She dies 2 years later. You're probably wondering why she surely touched the cross. Why didn't heal her from old age? And why didn't it bring her back to life? And why didn't they use it to bring her back to life? Because nobody wants to die. I'll get to that in a moment. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the history of why people wear a cross, right, around their neck. And it all begins with Helena, and it all begins basically where she went to Golgotha, etc. So what this did was she shipped it back to her son. She shipped these crosses back. And so you can imagine the news of the day. The news of the day is, oh my God, the crosses that Jesus was crucified on, they have them. Now, what Constantine did is he basically, during the same time, he made Christianity his official religion, but he took paganism and the pantheon of gods and other people you pray to and Zeus's and all this other stuff, which is how we get Easter. It's why Jesus' birthday, they ignore it in March and they say it's Christmas. He pushed it all together. So what happened is this spreads through social whispering, word of mouth. It basically took off and it became a viral sensation. Oh my God, the cross has been found. Oh my God, you touch the cross, you are healed. Oh my God, if somebody is dead and you lay them on it, they come back to life. And so this traveled through official dispatches, which were the social media and papers of the day. It was letters between bishops saying it. And then what happened is this interesting effect happened. People around that world at the time began to, I've got to travel to the site too. It's kind of like, I'm a Hollywood star and I'm a singer and I'm so good and I adopted a Somali baby and look at my black baby and look at me. See what a good person I am? Well, just like that kind of took off in Hollywood, everybody adopts a black baby from a foreign country and it became the thing to do to show how pious and how great you are. Well, the world wants to emulate this, okay? So people began flocking to Jerusalem. It's the place to go. You've got to go. Here it is. It became the end day, or the N-I-N, not E-N-D, the end day. You got to travel here. You got to do this. You got to go here. This is the bomb. And if you're anybody of consequence, you've got to go to this place. Now, it sounds weird, but I'm just giving you the history. Now, there was an interesting little bit of conflict at this time because you got to understand, for 300 years prior to this event, the cross was the Roman symbol of humiliation and execution. That's why prisoners and stuff, the towel, they would brand them with the cross. It was a sign of humiliation and execution, and that you are in fact a criminal. Now, what they did is they would take any criminals, not just Christians, any criminals. You know, you stole something, you did whatever. You're put up on the cross naked and you are killed. Now, at the same time, the people of the word, remember, we don't have Christians yet, but we do in fact have people of the word. And that's what the battle was. Now, the people of the word, they did have things they in fact revered. Ithias, the fish, sort of the little symbol of the fish, the symbol of the anchor, and the symbol of what's called the good shepherd. Those were the symbols if you were a person of the word. You completely shunned and you stayed away from the symbol of the cross, because the cross carried too much stigma with it. But now somebody's basically found this magical piece of wood. And somehow with Christ on the cross, crucified on the towel, which became the cross, it had magical bowers. And what she did is she not only sent this cross back, by the way, it was in pieces, right? Kind of like Search of Oak Island. I found wood. Anyways, all these different pieces. And they send it back to Constantine in its empire. Now, Constantine is going, wow, people really dig this shit. This is only a history lesson, folks. I'm giving you the history of why people wear a cross around their neck. This is only a history lesson. This is not a faith lesson. It is not a religion lesson or anything else. It's only a history lesson of how did all this occur, right? So what Constantine realizes, wow, this is a powerful symbol. So what he does is he says, I'm going to build a building here. Because look at how many people, poor people, rich people, medium people, whatever, man, this makes people gather. And so what he did is he got parts in the empire. There were parts left in Jerusalem, etc. But on that site where this was, on that site, that is where they built, they built this place of worship. Sepulchre is what it's called. It's the church. And all of a sudden, religious icon became the bomb. So he decided to build this church there on that site, to a basilica to be built, Church of the Sepulchre. And what he did is he did a combinative move. Remember, this is the fellow that told you Pesach, Passover is Easter, combination. Sabbath is now Sunday, combination. Celebration of the birth of Jesus is not going to be in March. We're going to move it to this. And his birthday is going to be, Christmas. It was all this combining efforts, because remember, he had an empire that was being tied apart, and he had to have everybody accept this new version of it. And so this particular place, why he did the church there, is this became the official place where this is what was proclaimed. This is where the crucifixion took place. This is where the burial took place. And this is where the resurrection took place. Now, this was profound. Something like this had never been done before in history. And he spent in modern times, $200 million in his time to build this complex. This is the original approved mega church destination site. $200 million of his time to do it. So all of a sudden, what happened is this brand new thing, which was beginning to get a new name, now not only got pushed with the old Pantheon and together, but it led to this physical structure called the church. And that issued a monumental statement, because it basically said, we're not persecuting religion, but by the way, your emperor thinks this way too. Your emperor thinks so much, he took his money, $200 million worth, and he built this place. Now, the question you have to ask yourself, if the emperor with the wave of a hand could feed you to the dogs or could put you in the arena or whatever, are you going to go, well, I'm like that too. I adopted a Somali kid. Look how great I am, right? I wear Nikes. right? I drive a Tesla. See, I'm too. I drive a Tesla. Well, what it did is it created this interesting wave. And it became, if you were fashionable, if you were on the in crowd and you wanted to align yourself with the emperor, I do as the emperor does. I'm as pious as his mother. I'm going to Jerusalem too. Well, it kind of spawned this cottage industry. And this is where people started traveling to these holy places. Well, now people could actually, I know this is going to sound weird, I don't mean it by, but you would travel a long distance to touch wood. Literally. So now what you want to do, because you heard that this piece of wood heals people and this piece of wood resurrects people, people are flocking to this place. Now, the word became, if you can touch the wood or if you can see the wood, it is the 100% equivalent to touching or seeing the actual body of Christ. And so this became what is called the physical connection. People that needed to see proof, which is like, I see proof of God in so many things, it's nuts. But in people to see proof, the official see proof became these crosses, became you go to the church. Well, what happened is all of this started in the 4th century. Now, during the 4th century, what happened to these pieces of cross is they were all kind of spread across the empire. If the emperor liked you, here, I bestow upon you a piece of the cross. And so these things got sent around. They were the prized thing to collect. Only a few churches had them. And if you were going to build a church, think, I want a Jumbotron system, mega screen, 100-foot wide system, and I want a rock band. Well, at the time, if you want to draw people to the church, you need a piece of this cross. And so if you're trying to build your version of the physical building, which became a thing because everybody is trying to emulate what the emperor himself did, and people across the world are going, well, that's a pretty good idea. Never thought about really building a building, but how can I get people to come to my building in my area? Because not everybody can afford the price to, take the year off for the pilgrimage to go to Jerusalem. That's just for the rich people and the billionaires. And so it was, well, how can we make this for everyday people? So that's kind of where building churches became the fashion. And when this exploded, it really exploded in the Middle Ages. Because a lot of different things happened. First off, you now had a building that I might not be able to go to Jerusalem. I might not be able to step in the sepulcher church, but damned if they haven't built one in our neighborhood. And I'm going to that one. And the reason I'm going to that one is because they also have a piece of this wood. And so you had macro tourism and you had micro tourism. And in the macro and micro tourism, just like any religious site in the world, it made people come to your structure. They came to your structure because they believed your structure is great. They learned that this cross is Christ. If you touch it, see it, or anywhere near it, it's like being in the presence of Christ. And so you want to kind of go to these places. So it actually became a symbol. Now, what happened is everybody's getting in on it. Interestingly enough, the very Romans that would arrest or imprison people of the word that had been done for hundreds of years, people were naturally afraid of the police, although this was military. So you got to understand there's hundreds of years of fearing the Romans. You see the Romans coming on the horizon, they're coming to take your shit. You follow what I'm saying? And so in a political military move, okay, they took an old symbol, combined it with a new symbol, and they basically, the Roman soldiers started wearing it. And this is where the key row comes in. You've seen it all over. And so this is how the soldiers had a symbol on them. Don't fear us, right? Don't fear us. We're the good guys. In case you didn't know it, this is the official monogram of Christ. They just hadn't figured out how to put it on clothing yet. But this is the official monogram of Christ. If you wear this monogram, then you are a good guy. That's how you saw it on all the Roman legions. I'll play you that video before. This is how symbology, this is where symbology takes off. So the symbol became the symbol of strength and honor. So when you saw these guys marching on their shields or what are coming in your town, you no longer had to fear that they were going to conquer you. You just had to fear they were going to attack you. But you had no longer fear they were going to conquer you. It's not profitable to kill you. They were basically strength and honor, and it was, and by default, remember, if you had the cross, saw the cross, touched the cross was Jesus. It was like being in Jesus' presence. Even looking upon it was identical to looking upon Jesus. So you didn't see armies marching toward you. You saw God marching toward you. Here's what I'm covering, by the way.
The city of Helenopolis in ancient Bithynia was the scene of remarkable encounters and unities, where history highlights a remarkably important figure, Helena. Before she was venerated as a saint, Helena was born in a pagan context during the 3rd century, when Christianity was still beginning to expand in the Roman Empire. Her modest origin, working as an innkeeper and in charge of the stables, did not indicate the role she would play. Her qualities soon caught the attention of Constantius Chlorus, a young officer who, despite social differences, approached her. Helena became Constance's wife, and together they had a son, Constantine, whose relevance to Christian history would be decisive. Constantine was born in Naso, present-day Serbia, and was raised under the attentive care of his mother. With Constantius's political advance into the Tetrarchy, Helena was separated from her husband and son due to the demands of emperors Diocletian and Maximian, who ordered Constance to marry Maximian's stepdaughter Theodora. Separated from the family, Helena faced a period of isolation but remained resilient. Her new status did not change her way of being. On the contrary, it expanded her initiatives to support the most needy. Helena devoted herself to charitable works, helping the poor, freeing prisoners, and helping those in need, without losing the simplicity that characterized her. Her conversion to Christianity had a great impact on Constantine, who, under her influence, promulgated the Edict of Milan in 313, guaranteeing religious freedom to Christians and ending a long period of persecution. Helena began to live her faith discreetly, participating in religious ceremonies among the people. Among the highlights of her life is the pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 326, when she was about 78 years old, motivated by family issues involving Constantine. In Jerusalem, Helena ordered the construction of the basilicas of the Nativity at Bethlehem and the Ascension on the Mount of Olives. She also supervised excavations at Golgotha, the site traditionally associated with the discovery of the cross of Christ. This episode became a symbol of her devotion. During the voyage, Helen sent 3 crosses to Constantine, one of which was incorporated into the iron crown preserved in Monza Cathedral, reinforcing the idea that power should be in the service of higher principles. To this day, fragments of the cross are kept in the Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, Rome. Helena died in 329 at the age of 80. Her legacy is recognized in both the East and the West, where she is celebrated on different dates. His image, often associated with the cross, remains a reference of faith and devotion. In Rome, his memory is preserved through the porphyry sarcophagus on display in the Vatican Museum and by the monumental statues under the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. We pray, O Saint Helena, who found the true cross of Christ, strengthen my faith and hope. I intercede to Jesus that I may be protected from every evil. Help me to carry my crosses with love and trust in God.
Okay, so this became the approved symbol. It became the approved symbol of compliance. It transformed Romans from people who were hated to people, no, we're the good guys. We're not going to kill you, but we are going to tax you and you are going to feed us and you're going to take care of us. But no, we're the good guys. And so this kind of caught on. Now, remember, there were a lot of compliance issues at the time because they slowly moved the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. They moved it because they needed to find a way, will you comply with what is officially sanctioned? Think COVID mask. Okay. So what happened is the people themselves go, wait a minute. If these guys are showing me from a distance, hey, I'm a good guy, especially when they know different. These are the guys that always came, take my food, rape my daughters, took my lambs or whatever, and I got to feed them and I'm obliged to do it and I've got to feed them. Well, people understood maybe I can head off some of the criticism. Maybe I can head off some of the judgment because they recognize, wow, this is what the emperor does. This is what the emperor approves. It comes from his mom. This cross, oh my God, I can't afford to go to Jerusalem. I'm not that whatever, but it started taking off. And so these things called the church started coming off and the symbol started coming off. And by the way, if you think you can touch the cross and it's going to heal you and it resurrects the dead, damn toot sweet, you're going to do it, but you couldn't afford to go to Jerusalem. So on the local level, what happened is people started symbolizing back. Hey, like maybe when you were junior high school, I wear Izod's. I wear Ralph Lauren. You can kind of see this in our era, how this takes off. And so I drive a Tesla. I drive a Hummer. It was actually the form of the time of social signaling. And that, in fact, you could symbol to the world, I'm one of the good guys. So what it did is it moved this faith of the word, which at the time was very devout to the word and had nothing in between it. Nothing. All of a sudden, the word of God now had a filter point. Instead of you taking exactly what Jesus said, you have a direct connection for God. It says, no, it should come through this building. It should come through our people. You should come here and get it because you can't get it at home. You can't get it at home. You got to come to this building. And so that's when two things merged. It was the tension between doing what God tells you to ask, seek, knock, to find it for yourself, dig into me yourself. You have free will. You must choose a free will. And when this thing of faith became an institutionalized system. Now, do not confuse this. She was on a personal journey of exactly what God gave you to do, free will, but God commands you to dig and to dig deep. She was honoring her faith, trying to get answers of her faith, right? So it took off. it became, wait a minute. Well, then another part happened. When people started flocking to Jerusalem, and then people started understanding that, well, if they've got a piece of the cross, and the cross is actually Jesus, and if I can even look upon it, it's identical to me being the presence of Jesus, but it's housed in this building. What happened is this really interesting merge happened where you take the relic, you get a piece of control over it, you house it in the building, and people will come to your building. I would use a modern secular one. Say Taylor Swift will be appearing this evening. Come here. So the emperors asked for favors to get pieces of the cross. The various other sub-emperors of the sub-emperors of the sub-emperors. And then the bishops began to ask for favors to get a piece of the cross. Well, the church realized that's now the physical building. Wow, these buildings are expensive. Constantine just dropped $200 million. We can't do that, but we can build our own version. But how the fuck do we pay for it? This is where it begins. We'll pay for it because the people want to pay an entrance fee to come in. And by the way, they will buy these symbols. We'll make them. It's like my cross with your pillow for $250. You too can wear your cross on the outside of your shirt. Well, this is where it all began. And it began to be the status symbol, the entry fee that is, like I told you today, a $25 billion industry just in the making, the selling, and the marketing of the symbol of the cross. Now, you know, that's the backstory of all of this. Okay, this is how the phenomenon occurred. This is how the whole religious relics business began. People started, bishops or whatever, well, I'm going to go to Golgotha. I'm going to see what I can find in the Holy Land. Well, when they went to the site, again, where the crosses were supposedly found, magically, after 1,200 years, something like that, we'll just call it 500 years, doesn't matter, somebody found the actual crown of thorns that was put on Christ's head. Yes, it survived all this time in the rubble. And so this was, oh my God, look at what we found, which, by the way, Napoleon Bonaparte, was it Napoleon, bought for $50 million at the time? Anyway, the church, which is now a building, this is why, you have faith, which is what God gave you, which is free will. Then you have religion. Religion is your brand that you identify with. I am not a Converse guy. I'm a fucking Nike guy. I'm not going to be associated with the Converse. I don't like those. Those are cheap. I'm a higher end. I'm Nikes. I'm Air Jordana Jesus. I am not Converse track shoes. You follow what I'm saying? So all of this took hold. What happened is, at that time, then people moved to a different part of it, is you don't have to search anymore as God commands you. You don't have to search anymore. Because I, the church, will give you a piece of this fellow Jesus, and I'm doing it out of love, and $250 just as a contribution. You're going to get this cross. And you too can wear this cross and show people that you have been through the trials and tribulations, you have searched, you have dug. Now, granted, you didn't go to Jerusalem. Granted, you went to the building. Granted, you never really got to see the cross there. Some of the crosses say, well, this is the splinter of Christ, of the cross, of the splinter pulled out of his side. This is the splinter that we found on the right side. This is the splinter we found on the left side. All of these things begin to pop up, and they got you into the building. And so this is what led to institutional packaging and commercialization. This is the origins of the cross. And what it did is if you had one, just like the Romans, you got to imagine the Romans are marching into town. For hundreds of years, if you saw them in the distance, you freaking ran. Why? Because they're going to take all your food, they're going to drink all your wine, they're going to eat all your animals, they're going to rape your kids, they're going to take your boys as soldiers, and they're probably going to kill your ass because you're too old to fight. And by the way, then the land automatically becomes theirs. Well, the Romans had used it successfully by doing the key row, and you said, oh, it's the good guys. And everybody wanted to be one of the good guys. And now this is how the packaging took off. And it, in record numbers, people adopted the approved image, the approved merchandise, the approved symbols, etc. It was no longer hidden. And this was the viral event of the day that started in the 400s, right? Now, Helena is venerated in both Eastern and Western traditions. But you've got to understand one thing uniquely happened. This was wholly, with a W, W-H, wholly owned by the Roman Empire. Everything came through the Roman Empire. Everything. It's got to be approved from here. It's going to matriculate down. You're going to get a piece. If you didn't get a piece, then in fact, you can own a piece, and you could either own a piece by mounting your own expedition, which was expensive, or you could have the approved ones that were approved by the system. This exploded. This is where it became a mega industry. By the 8th and 9th century, the demand was insane, because you can imagine the local bishop got his church and his buddies and the rich people that were helping build the church and whatever. You got a rich donor, the rich donor say, I want a little sliver of that cross of my own. Well, you can only kind of whittle these things down so much, you thought, right? Everybody, every institution, every politician, every person of importance, I want a piece of that. I helped you build this building. I want a piece of that. Then the church realized something. Well, I guess I could give you a piece of it, but you got to give me some of your land. What? I'll give you an official piece. I'll give you an official piece. I like you. I know you supported me. I know you tell all your surf workers to come to this building and whatever. And yeah, I want to do you a favor, but tell you what, if you will give me part of your land, I will give you part of this relic. And thus begins the Holy Roman Catholic Church, the Catholic Church as you know it today, becoming the single largest real estate holder in the world. The Roman Catholic Church is the single largest owner of real estate in the world. But after a time, they can only splinter off, cut off, chew off, chip off. Here you have a thorn. Here you got a thorn of this. It kept on becoming rare. And in that vacuum, the single largest part of the medieval economy associated with the church, because remember, you're given grain to the church. That's your tithe. That's where it comes from. You used to be, I told you this before, you raised your fields. You left a little sliver of the field over here. It kept it, and people that were in need would come to your field, and it was totally fine. They would harvest the grain or whatever, and they could feed themselves. Well, they were able to direct all of that through the building, through the church. Well, no, we're going to control the food. We want them to come here to get it, right? And so during the medieval period, one of the single largest, fastest growing segment of commerce in all of quote unquote Christendom in the 8th and 9th century coming in the Middle Ages was in fact the relic business. And if the church had a knuckle of St. Canonicus and you wanted to look at the Canonicus knuckle, then okay, I'll let you look at it. I'll let you touch it, right? and it's not Jesus, but it is somebody who went to the Holy Land, who actually saw the cross, who actually saw this, said this was great. They got a piece of the cross. They died, and we've now been taking the bones, which we didn't used to do anything with, and now we got a knuckle and a forefinger and a thumb joint and a knee joint and all this, and we actually have St. Nicholas's kneecap. And if you want to see that kneecap, you've got to, one, you're going to have to kind of vote my way. When I say things need to be done to benefit God, you're going to have to do it, because remember, when I come walking, I'm wearing this badge that says I am God, and so you got to do it. And you really want to be part of that too, because you don't want to be left out. So if you'll give me part of your land, then I will grant you a knuckle audience. This was the trading big mega currency of the day, kind of like I spent $100 million on this painting, right? But they still had gaps because there wasn't enough proven religious artifacts that could really be the bone knuckle, the ankle bone of that. And so that's where the heavy consumer market began. And that's where, for a price, you can have a church sanctioned reproduction, although it's small, and you can buy it on the open market, but it has to be bought through the church. You can't buy it on the street. That's forbidden, right? And that's where I said Napoleon. It's King Louis of France the Ninth. He's the one that bought from Emperor Baldwin II the crown of thorns, $50 million at the time of today's dollars. What it was major. It was like 12,000 or 135,000 livres way back then, right? So began a market selling the bones of saints. Now remember, here's what happened. It starts with the cross. 326 years later, no, this is the real cross. We know it because we made a sick woman touch it. She was healed. We know it because it put a dead man on it, and he was healed, and he came back to life. That's how powerful this is. Yes, you can touch it for a price. You can see it for a price. You can visit at this destination. And then as that really took off, everybody's looking for the next cool product. mycross.com. Order now. Promo code Mike Lindell, $250. You could buy your version of it. And so they started, everybody who had got pieces, who had now been sainted, who had now been, no, those are holy, man. They looked upon it. They began to sell body parts. One of the ones that did it was Thomas Becket at Canterbury, right? He was enshrined at Thomas Becket in Canterbury, and it was in 1170. Pilgrims that went there to honor, I've seen this as holy, basically that's where they started leaving silver and gold. And this became rampant, right? Rampant. Now, most people turn a blind eye to it. You don't question your faith. You don't question God. I'm a man of God. How dare you question me? I'm a Christian. What are you doing questioning me? I'm a pastor. Don't you question me? Well, the church kind of turned a blind eye to it because the church got part of it, etc. And even in the 13th century, in 1204, this was part of sacking the churches in Constantinople because they wanted to get it. They wanted to own that cross that was still left there, and they wanted to divide it up. A single sliver could turn you into a rock star. If you could somehow get an authorized single splinter, you could do it. Now, wealthy patrons began to give loans to the church based on these relics. If you want this relic, I will give you a loan, but you're going to pledge your lands to me to pay off your loan. Of course, a lot of these couldn't pay their loans, and the church got the money. These even became diplomatic trading chips. This is how this whole economy started. Now, I ask you a very simple question. Why do you wear a cross on your neck? Most people will tell you, I wear it to show I am a Christian. I am a true believer. The only question I ask you is, did you know this history? I just gave you the authentic history, very precise. How did this phenomenon of wearing a cross on your neck come from? How did it take off? How did it become a thing? It literally, even though in Christianity they'll tell you that's an idol, that's a talisman. We don't do talismans in Christianity. The cross was the single most important talisman of its time in the Middle Ages, until there became competition with talismans. No, it can't be this. It must be the cross. The cross isn't a talisman. Your fava bean is a talisman. So don't you wear a fava bean, because the only one we've sanctioned is the cross. Quick question. And it's a contradiction. Now, these contradictions aren't talked about because Helene went and retrieved the cross. But in case you didn't catch it, for some reason, it didn't heal her. It didn't bring Helene or Constantine or any of them back from the dead. They had it. Every bishop or whatever, a priest that was allowed to touch it, none of those came back from the dead. So what does that mean? Well, the way they theologically explain it was that was a one-off, just to prove it was the real one. God only did it once. It was a one-off. But yet, there's 3 or 4 different stories of a person raised from the dead and or touch it and healing. And the popes and the bishops and everybody that also died from diseases, because they were mere humans and they handled these things. Why didn't it heal them? Because, well, that was only a one-off. That was only it. But it is what identifies the one true cross. These are the things from a theology basis are discussed, never mentioned. You can't talk about them in the open, or they'll call you a name. Heretic, Jew, you must be transphobic. You must be crossphobic. The only reason I share this is you need to understand the difference between what Jesus actually said and was crucified for, saying you have a direct connection to God. You need nobody else. You don't need these buildings. You don't need these labels. You don't need to bring your shit to them. But it became corralled. And similar to the pandemic, are you complying? A lot of this became compliance. And this is the difference between Catholic Church, where they'll give you one lesson, or Roman Catholicism, where they'll give you a different lesson. And you must understand, politics and religion are 100% the same thing. I'm choosing my words carefully here. There is faith, which God gave you, which is 100% free will. It is incumbent upon you to ask questions, to seek out truth, to knock on the door to truth, to know when you're there and to arrive. I know my history, my facts, and everything are there. That is what God directly tells you to do. The question is really, who made the decision for you? How did you come to a decision that I'm going to wear a cross? I'm going to wear this cross on my outside so everybody can see it. And this is what it means. Just a question. It is incumbent upon us to dig, to understand, and to know. At a time in history, you couldn't say, and it became forbidden to even say you were a person of the word. No, you're a Christian. But then you had to prove you were a Christian. You must prove it. You must come to this building. If you want the official sanctioned license NFL merchandise, here it is. It can only be here. But you can't just say you believe in God and have a relationship with God, and you're based on the word, unless you do it this way. This filtering has happened tremendous amount of times throughout history. And that's why I always tell you, you have a directive from God throughout history in the word that you are to have a direct relationship with him, to seek him, to know, and to understand. This is not a message about faith. This is a message about what brand did you adopt? Why did you adopt that brand? Why do you think Nike Air Jordans are going to make you jump higher and score more versus the Converse? Now you go back and realize how many times we've been influenced by who wears what and who is the wearer of what. You now understand the concept of celebrity endorsement has been around for a very, 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 very long time. A very long time. The cross, at its most simplest meaning, is I am following what the emperor said we must do, therefore I am complying. Don't bugger me. But what have you been told? So you see, in all of these events, starting with one woman, very interesting economies that changed the world, generated a shitload of money, were created. That is why I say what we are instructed by God from a mankind standpoint is to directly ask questions so we can understand, seek out the truth, seek God, and know when you're looking at it. And to have discernment about what's God, what's man. And that is why in this discernment issue is there are three things at play always. There is faith. Faith is your 100% direct connection with God, period. That is faith. That is God-given, that God gave you free will. Then there is religion, which is, this is the brand I am willing to identify with. It's disconnected from faith. It is the brand that I am associating with, where when you look at me and my brand, you understand who or what I believe or I am. And then there is the church, which was the decided funnel, stadium, movie theater, amphitheater, mall, whatever the case may be, where you don't talk to God without us. You come here to talk to God because it must go through us. Now you know the history of the cross. It's very interesting, isn't it? And the question for you is, what is your personal journey? How much of your personal journey in your faith comes from your own study of history and fact, filtering it through that what is God, and how much of your faith is driven by the brand or the style that was given to you by somebody else to basically say, look at me, I'm one of these particular types of people. Share this program. I love you all.
Are data centers going to destroy America? Will data centers and artificial intelligence rob our water supplies? Will it drive up our energy costs? What's fact? What's fiction? Here is the truth no one talks about. America must win the AI data center war or surrender the future to the great dragon. Award-winning, 4-time best-selling author, technology, pioneer, and futurist. Jovan Hutton Pulitzer presents the definitive manual for winning this war against China, the three-toed dragon. Communist China's secret war to end American AI and data centers. China's relentless drive for AI dominance is no longer a distant threat. Through massive state-backed infrastructure, voracious energy consumption, and strategic control of global supply chains, the CCP is building an unstoppable technological empire. While America debates policy, China executes. This is not another tech trend. It is the decisive battlefield of the 21st century where data centers, power generation, cooling systems, and sovereign energy infrastructure will determine who controls intelligence, economic supremacy, and national security. This fact book, guidebook, handbook, and war plan cuts through the noise with meticulously researched intelligence on the hidden realities of AI data center demands. Exploding power requirements, industrial-scale water usage, heat island effects, liquid cooling breakthroughs, hydrogen and off-grid solutions, semiconductor vulnerabilities, and the strategic choke points China already exploits. It delivers actionable blueprints for American victory from.
Do you have this #1 runaway bestseller as part of your homesteading library? Introducing the Food Forest Bible. How to create a food forest. Sustainable, self-managing, natural food production for self-sufficiency and food security. We all know the system is broken, but food sovereignty and survival is up to you. Will you comply or defy? You will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. Or so the system says. Is this why America's largest food processing plants and food supply plants keep burning down? Do you really think this is a coincidence? Of course not. The system is telling us right to our faces what they have planned for us. You have a choice. Comply or simply defy their plan for us all. Defy the system's plan and execute your own plan. Abundant, safe, secure, natural food supply. Introducing the Food Forest Bible. This bestseller by Jovan Hutton Pulitzer is the single most complete, executable, easy-to-follow plan for sustainable, self-managing food production for self-sufficiency and food security. For the first time ever, a coffee table, heirloom quality full-color book which unlocks the ancient secrets of creating a food forest. Imagine planting in a way which requires no digging, no pesticides, and creates massive ancient food abundance.
Is technology killing our children? Are we inadvertently tuning our precious children and grandchildren into killers? The Gollum effect is real and it is stealing our children. Award-winning, 4-time best-selling author, technology pioneer and futurist, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer presents the definitive manual saving your children, grandchildren, and all future children from the Gollum effect. Precious pixels, deadly devices, how the digital and social era is creating killer kids. The Gollum effect is real, and it is stealing our children. The Gollum effect is not fiction or exaggeration. It is the quiet, relentless transformation happening in homes, schools, and bedrooms across our nation. Just as Smeagol became the hollow, obsessive Gollum clutching his precious ring, our children are being consumed by screens, algorithms, and digital validation that promise connection but deliver isolation, anxiety, fractured attention, and distorted identities. We see it in the toddler who tantrums without a tablet, the teen who cannot hold a conversation without checking notifications, and the young adult adrift in comparison and purposeless scrolling. As parents and as a nation, we must name this enemy clearly. It is not neutral technology. It is a powerful force engineered for addiction that preys on developing brains, eroding the very qualities our children need most. Deep focus, real relationships, resilience, creativity, and a secure sense of self. Ignoring it or downplaying it has already cost us dearly. Our most precious commodity, our children, our future, is at stake, and the time for complacency is over. We must know the enemy in this battle and be willing to face them head-on. To win this battle, we must first know the enemy, and then face it with courage and strategy. The Gollum effect thrives on convenience, normalization, and profit-driven design that exploits boredom, fear of missing out, and the human need for connection. It hollows out childhood through endless stimulation while starving young minds of unstructured play, nature, hands-on mastery, and undivided attention from loving adults. Facing it means rejecting the lie that everyone is doing it or that screens are harmless entertainment. It requires intentional action, delaying personal devices, creating tech-free zones and rhythms, prioritizing outdoor adventures and real-world skills, teaching critical thinking about algorithms and comparison, and modeling presence ourselves. Parents, educators, extended family, faith communities, and mental health professionals all have vital roles. The good news is that practical, proven strategies exist, from family media audits and screen-free weeks to rich offline learning, spiritual formation, and accountability partnerships. We do not have to fight alone. When we name the threat and choose presence over convenience, we begin reclaiming the minds and hearts of our children. We can win this battle and save our future, but you must have a solid knowledge base and the tools needed to win. We can win this battle, and we must, for the sake of our children and the soul of our nation. Every family that implements device curfews and real-world adventures, every classroom that goes phone-free during learning, every faith community that forms identity in something eternal, and every young person who chooses accountability and purpose strikes a blow against the Gollum effect. Victory looks like children who play creatively for hours, teens who build deep friendships and meaningful skills offline, and young adults who enter life with focus, resilience, and hope. It looks like families eating together undistracted, laughing, and truly knowing one another. The battle is winnable because human beings were made for more than pixels. We were made for wonder, relationship, creation, and contribution. Our children are worth every uncomfortable choice, every boundary, and every redirected hour. Let this be our rallying cry. We see the enemy, we know how to fight it, and we will not surrender the minds and futures of our most precious gift. Together, as parents and as people, we can break the hold of the Gollum effect and raise a generation that is truly free, present, purposeful, and full of life. Available on Amazon, hardbound, paperback, and ebook. Order now. The time to act is now. Our children are counting on us.